Part 2 of how I caught my 13-year-old sister sleeping with her teacher. So continuing on with the story, I was just waiting outside the room until they got done. And one day my mom called me and said that it was an emergency and she had to pick us up early. So I knocked on the door really lightly and then I opened the door. And I'm surprised it wasn't locked. And I opened the door and I see my 13-year-old sister and her 42-year-old teacher just getting it on. I mean, I ain't no snitch, so I didn't say nothing. At the time, I was 11 years old in 6th grade and I high-fived her. Then the teacher bribed me with $500 to not say anything. Again, I was in 6th grade at the time, so my parents would definitely wonder where I got the money from. So the teacher told me that if I let them keep doing their thing, he'll make this fake raffle and say that I won it. Because me and my sister were so close, I never snitched on her. And this is the first time I'm telling the story. Me and my sister don't talk anymore. So if you're that teacher that gave me $500 to keep effing my older sister, you are probably one of the most disgusting people that I've ever met. And if this story gets out there, sorry for saying this, but I need to get this out there. John Wilson, you deserve to rot in jail. Storytime of how I figured out that my sister was trying to kill me. So me and my sister were like best friends when we were little, but she was a very, very jealous person. So years and years go on, but her jealousy seems to start to grow. So I never really thought about it until I found out that she really wanted me dead. But throughout the years, she would do little things to get me hurt. For example, she pushed me off the top of our treehouse and I ended up breaking my arm. But every time I got hurt, my family would baby me and she would get even more mad. So at this time, we're about 16 years old, and I had to go in her room to get her laundry. And under her laundry, I found her diary, or journal, or whatever you call it. I was flipping through the pages, I found out some interesting and crazy things. Then one was named The Perfect Murder. What an original name. She had this big, huge dresser in her room. She went into a lot of detail about how she was going to kill me. But it stated that she was going to push the dresser on top of me and jump on it until I, then scream for help. I'm running out of time, like for part 2. Part 2 of how I found out that my sister was trying to kill me. Continuing on with the story, after I read what I read in her diary, I decided it was best to keep it to myself. So about a month and a half later, I start to think to myself and I'm like, okay, maybe she's not actually gonna do it. Y'all, I don't know why, but I was literally not scared that my sister was like about to kill me. So about 2.5 months after I read what I read in her diary, she calls me into her room and in this fakest voice ever goes, "Sissy, why are you being so distant from me?" I just looked at her like she was crazy. Then she goes, "I know you read my diary." At that exact moment, she looked psycho. I don't know what I was thinking, but right after she said that, my reflex was to knock her out. So I knocked her out, then I stomped on her head. I called my mom into the room and read her the diary, or whatever the heck my sister put in there. Mind you, while I'm reading my mom this diary, she's still knocked out on the floor. My mom then continues to say she's going to put her in a mental hospital. So to this day, my sister's in a mental hospital, and if you're listening to this and you ever get out, please don't kill me. I'm actually living an amazing life right now.
This is the time my mom faked her death so she didn't have to take care of me and my siblings. Yes, this girl really faked her death. So at the time, I was 5 and my little brother was 3. It started off with my mom saying that she didn't feel well and she couldn't pick me up from school, so the bus would have to take me home. Well, a few months after, she started getting picked up from our house by this black car. She said that car was picking her up because of her so-called doctor's appointments. And she wasn't able to drive herself because she was too sick. Well, one day, when this car came to pick her up, she never came home. Me and my little brother was sitting around for a couple days waiting for her to come home, but she never came home. And we were young, so we didn't do anything. Eventually, my aunt came over to our house and told my little brother and I that our mom had passed away and that she was cremated and they kept the ashes. So our aunt started taking care of us. Until one day I saw my aunt getting picked up by that same black car. That's when I started to get suspicious of everything and I decided to check these ashes. When I checked, it was flour. Like for part 2. This is part 2 of the time my mom faked her death so she didn't have to take care of me and my siblings. Like I said, my aunt told me that my mom had died and they cremated her and they let her keep the ashes and that she was going to start taking care of us. Me not knowing how long the cremating process actually took at the time since I was so young, I believed her. Until one day I saw my aunt getting picked up by the same black car that my mom used to get picked up by before she died. That's when I decided to check these supposed ashes and it was actually flour. So one day when my aunt got picked up by this black car, I decided to follow her. I didn't have a car. I was 5 years old, so I had to follow them by walking and hiding behind bushes. I was able to follow them up the street, and once they turned the corner, and there I saw my mom standing on the side of the street. That's when I see the car stop and I see my aunt get out and approach my mother. She tells my mom to give her money for covering for her and taking care of me and my little brother. Mom says she faked her death because my dad wasn't in our lives and she didn't want to take care of us anymore. I'm older now and I cut her off completely and I have full custody of my little brother.
Extremely toxic best friend story time. So when I was in 8th grade, there was this boy, and this boy would go around telling almost every girl that he liked her, and I was one of those girls. and he would do stuff with all of us. And there were like 11 of us, so we all hated each other. Especially this one girl, and we're gonna call her Abby. And every time we saw each other, we would be super mean to each other. Well, a year passed, we stopped talking to this kid, and I bumped into her at homecoming and basically apologized. So after that, we became best friends. And everything was good until every time I told her about a guy, she would start talking to them. Like this one boy that I was Snapchatting and talking to, she accidentally sent nudes to him and said, "Oh, sorry, I meant to send them to my boyfriend." So then she called one of my other best friends and said, "No, it actually wasn't an accident." And of course he told me because he was my best friend. So I was like, whatever, and stopped talking to the boy. And she did it again, like for part 2.
Extremely toxic best friend, part 2. So pretty much the excuse for that was, he said that he was going to read my hands, and I didn't send him them again. Which was a lie, because literally half the school already had her nudes. So then I started talking to this other boy, and he lived like right down the street from her. So she was like, if you want to go to his house, you can. And I was like, are you sure? And she said, yeah, just go tell my mom. And I was like, oh, okay. So I went and told her mom where I was going and went over his house. So I walked back to her house, and she literally locked me out. Like her mom had to come open the door for me to let me in. And she was like, oh, it's a good thing you came back when you did, because I was going to drive you home now and tell your dad everything that you did. And she goes, I don't think you guys should be together because you're inexperienced. And she would always tell me how he flirts with her all the time. So after our friendship ended, she goes, I just felt like it was always a competition between me and you.